Hi, my name is Amrish Gupta and I'm going to present you with Extreme Programming. What is Extreme Programming? Extreme Programming is yet another agile development methodology that advocates frequent releases in the short development cycles. It is popularly known as XP, and its biggest advantage is resilience towards the changing customer requirements and in turn improving the software quality. In extreme programming, customer need not wait for the end of the implementation phase to give its new requirements during the maintenance. Rather, because of the short iteration periods, around 2 to 3 weeks, the requirements for the next feature can be given right after testing the very first feature. About the history of extreme programming or XP, it was developed in 1990s by Kent Bank, who was improving upon the development methodology of a challenge project C3 Chrysler Comprehensive Compensation Payroll System, and he released the book on extreme programming in October 1999. Why this methodology is known as extreme programming? Why this word extreme is coming? Actually, in extreme programming, it takes the best practices of the software development to the extreme level. For example, code review. Every programmer does a code review after programming to improve upon its existing code, think upon it. Whereas in case of the extreme programming, with the feature of pair programming, we'll talk about the pair programming in the next slide. It is done continuously. The code review, one programmer is doing the coding, the other programmer is continuously reviewing the code. The second thing is testing. We normally test the application once it has been built and to check its quality assurance that it is meeting the customer requirements or not. Whereas in case of XP, it is like other way around. We create the test first and the application code is developed to meet and pass the challenges of those pre-written tests. Some of the key features of XP are, like, there are 7 key features. The very first is pair programming. In the pair programming, as I told earlier, there are two programmers who are using the same machine, the same keyboard to do the programming or to develop the system. It does take more time than the individual person doing programming. It actually takes 15% more time, but the number of errors in the program so developed is less than 15%. Moreover, it gets an advantage of each programming learning from the other, and if they are stuck anywhere, they have two minds working together to find a better solution to the problem. Another key feature of XP is on-site customer. We have 100% availability of the customer on-site always, so that the developers can go walk up to him, ask him if they have any doubt about some feature to be developed next, or the customer also take care of the project and keep it on track. Refactoring is another feature of XP, wherein the codes of XP are kept simple. Even after the development of a feature, the code is revisited, checked whether there is no to check for any duplication or something, so that when we add new features tomorrow, we should not have trouble, and it is continuously being refactored. Then continuous integration. uh, XP is basically making jigsaw puzzle pieces fit together. So every 2 to 3 weeks, when we have a new feature, it should not so happen that they are not integrated with the main system at a later date. So they are continuously as soon as a feature is developed, they are integrated into the main system, and the work goes on like this. Some of the other features of XP are automated in the extensive testing. As we already talked, that XP takes the testing to the extreme level, or it is an integral part of the software. It has automated tests, and every unit testing is done for all the code. It is not for just for the larger parts. One of the biggest advantage of XP, because it is taking to take care of the customer change requirements, is shorter cycles. Its iteration cycles around 2 to 3 weeks. So a customer, after every 2 to 3 weeks, decide on what feature they want next, and they can give their change requirements at the same time. The flat management structure. In XP, the programmers do not work in cubicles. They work in a big room where they can walk up to any other developer or the programmer or to the customer and the manager to clarify their doubts. and develop accordingly. Moreover, in case of the pair programming, they can choose any pair for a different feature, and they can sit together and program. Structure of XP. Extreme programming is basically about two games: planning game and the iteration planning game. Both of these games have three phases. First see the planning game. The planning game is the players in the planning game is the business and the developer team. During the very first phase is the exploration phase. Business gives stories. Stories are nothing but the features or the problems which the business is facing, for which they want the system to be developed. Developer, after reading these stories, may divide these stories or may split the stories into two or three stories for each to separate each feature for each story, and estimates the time for these stories. Then comes the commitment phase. In the commitment phase, business sort out these card based on the most valuable feature which they want, or the good to have feature and the non-essential features. Once they sort these cards in these three categories, the developers revisit these cards, estimate the risk, that is the risk of the time estimate for each of these story or the feature. Now the finally after these estimates of the risk, the card goes to the business, and the business chooses which feature they want in the next release. Then we have the steering phase. Steering phase nothing but the review of the work. Basically, it happens every 2 to 3 weeks, and it depends upon the estimate of the time which the feature is going to take next. During this phase, user acceptance testing is done, and the feature and the feature which was planned is released, and the next feature which they want to have is decided. Between the phases of the steering phase of the planning game, we have the iteration planning game. The player in the iteration planning game are just the developers or the programmers. In this iteration planning game, there are no business people involved. This game happens between the two steering phases of the planning game. During the it also have three phases. In the exploration phase, programmer builds the task card for each story card, the kind of pseudocode. Then they have the in the during the commitment, the programmers accept responsibility of the task and balance their workload. And then finally, in the steering phase, they build the program, test it, and show it to the customer during user acceptance testing, that is during the steering phase of the planning game. And if everything works fine, they integrate it with the main system. This is XP at a glance. On the extreme left hand side, we have the stories which we receive from the business. Then these stories are worked upon by the programmers. These estimates are developed, and finally on each and every story or the feature, the programmer works. They do pair programming, testing, development, and after the acceptance testing, the feature is released in the next cycle. The difference between the software development life cycle and the extreme programming are basically in SDLC we have strict boundaries between these phases, like that is analysis, design, implementation, and maintenance and planning. Whereas in case of the extreme programming, all planning, analysis, design, implementation, and maintenance is fused into one phase. Basically, every in these figures we have like every 5 days we have. It is just pictorial representation. Is not actual, because in actual we have 2 to 3 weeks one iteration of XP, whereas it's in SDLC it's like a complete development process, wherein once one phase ends, we cannot go back to a particular phase. For example, if planning analysis is ended and we are in the implementation phase, we are in the design phase, we cannot go back to the planning or the analysis phase. If we have some change requirements or the new requirements which we are coming up, then we can only incorporate them during the maintenance phase after the implementation. Whereas in XP, due to the continuous iterations, the planning continuous iteration, we can tell the new requirements in the very next phase, and we can decide upon the most important feature which we want in this phase, the next important feature which we want in the next iteration cycle, and the least important feature which we can decide upon we want to add it on a very later date. For an XP methodology to work, there are five guiding principles for every programmer. That is communication. There should be continuous communication with the customer and the peer programmers. Simplicity. The program should be kept simple, and refactoring should be done so that when we add a new feature, it is easy to add it. It should not be in duplicate with the existing program. Then the feedback. The feedback is ensured by the customer on the previous feature, as well as the testing of the software gives continuous feedback. Then respect and courage. Courage is basically they should be truth. They should tell the truth about the time or the risk which they feel the particular feature or the story is going to take. When to use XP? XP is to be used when we have when the customer is not very clear of what exactly he is looking for. He doesn't have a firm idea, and the functionalities are expected to change every few months. The companies like Ford Motors, Chrysler, and IBM have used XP at least in some capacity in some time of their development cycle. Some of the advantages and disadvantages of XP are: advantages are continuous interaction between developer and customer, so the developer is better able to understand the problem and can develop the system accordingly. But its disadvantage, it needs the availability of the customer on time, on site 100% of the time. That may not be possible for the business to spare a person. The NXP has shorter development life cycles, usually 2 to 3 weeks, so the change requirements will can be incorporated easily. Whereas due to it creates a problem of unstable requirements. Then simple codes in XP, one of the key feature, the codes are more likely to work, but too much of refactoring just to make the code simple may be unproductive also. Then we have continuous integration prevents integration fees. Tomorrow we don't have the jigsaw puzzle pieces lying and we are unable to fit one into the another. But the lack of overall design document creates a problem. Till the extreme programming team is available and the features are added continuously, it is easy to understand the program and to build upon the feature. But tomorrow, later on, say 5 years down the line, we want to add one more feature. Because of the lack of design document, it could be very difficult. XP improves the productivity of all the programmers because of everybody involved, developers, managers, and the customer. Whereas the disadvantage XP is code centric and rather than design centric, without any pre-design approved design documents and asset structure. We saw Scrum methodology last week, and we are presenting extreme programming this week. Both are agile methodologies, but what basically is the difference is XP is a software development technique, Scrum is more a project management approach with all those daily meetings. XP is XP the team is more lenient about the changes. For example, in an iteration cycle after 2 to 3 weeks, we have we can give on the add new features. Even if the development of a particular feature which has been decided has not begun, the changes in that feature can be made with the availability of the customer on site. Whereas in Scrum, once the spirit has been decided, project planning has been done, no further changes is allowed until the end of that particular iteration. The changes are permissible in the next iteration. Iterations of XP are every 2 to 3 weeks, where in case of the Scrum they are around 1 to 1.5 months. XP is based on engineering practice like test-driven development, pair programming, simple design. Scrum is less on engineering practices. It is more on a project development and a project management approach. XP is hard to adapt, easier to master, and fails noisily, whereas Scrum is easy to adapt, very hard to master and fails silently. You will not know until the 1.5 month when the feature is released, uh, whether the project is on track or on failure. Whereas in XP there is no like 90%, we are on 90% track, or we are on 90%, 95% done, because the feature which has been targeted for that particular iteration is clearly visible on the system, and its correctness or its usability can be seen by the actual user. These are the references, and thank you.